right, welcome back to the Wrestling with the Faith podcast, everybody, or welcome if this is your first time joining us. We're a group of everyday people, everyday Christians get together to talk through a passage from the Bible and wrestle with what that means in our modern day lives. So this week, we're going to be talking through John 2, verses 1 through 11, and the story of Jesus turning water into wine. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water," and so they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. I was going to say, I heard a bit of a chuckle when about using the good wine first and bringing out the cheaper stuff later. It certainly makes me think of, get them drunk on the good stuff, and then when they really get to drinking more, they're not gonna taste the difference or know the difference.
We always drink cheap wine, so for us, it's really no big difference.
Beer. It was like in college, you can only afford the stuff.
Well, not that cheap a wine, but
I mean, not necessarily wine, more the beers.
I was going to say, so after that part, I was reading some of the stuff in my study Bible, and I thought it was interesting. It's kind of about the whole story, but particularly about where he talks about the good wine, saving the good wine for last. It says, people look everywhere but to God for excitement and meaning. For some reason, they expect God to be dull and lifeless. Just as the wine Jesus made was the best, so life in him is better than our own. Why do we kind of try to search other places? And I thought that was interesting, and it made me think of when I was involved in Young Life years ago. I helped a little bit, was a leader kind of. And one of the main leaders used to say it kind of bothered him when people sometimes kind of make Christianity and the Bible and Jesus like boring. And he was far from that with everything he did and so on. So it just made me think of that. I thought that was an interesting point.
Yeah, because it's in the previous weeks, we're talking about how we see God out in nature and out around us, and it's like there's nothing out there that you could really consider dull and boring. I mean, because you get some of those, like the beautiful rainforest with we mentioned the rainbow too as the sign of the covenant. So you get that. I wouldn't call a rainbow boring. You go out, you see all the various wildlife throughout the many different parts of the world.
So John spends a lot of time talking about miracles, fulfill earlier scripture in the Bible, and so I've never really thought of this as this is kind of Jesus's first miracle, if you will, because it's the beginning, and he even says it's really not my time yet, and so he's almost reluctant, to do it, because he knows as soon as he does it, people are going to start saying, "Wait a minute, what did that guy just do?" And so so I wonder what the real meaning of this particular turning water into wine, other than he'd be great at parties. I mean, that's kind of separate. I've always wondered what's the real significance of this particular miracle, turning water into wine. I think it definitely shows that he wasn't really all that excited about doing it, but he also had respect for his mother, and he also wanted the wedding the wedding party he was at to be okay, and they ran out of wine, which would have been embarrassing. So those are all wonderful things, but it doesn't seem as dramatic as raising Lazarus from the dead, right?
Curing the sick and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah,
It doesn't seem as maybe meaningful, I guess. It was probably meaningful if you were at the wedding and it was running out of wine, but so I don't really have a good thought on that.
At the very end, it says, his disciples believed him, that he was revealing his glory. And were they not totally believing him before? And maybe they needed a little something to be like, oh, yeah, he is the Son of God. He just turned water into wine. All right, what else he got to say? Maybe that kind of sucked him in a little bit.
Like I almost, it made me think of just like practicing, like with anything from our side with, music or sports or whatever. It's like you always try smaller things first before you go, work your way up. So it's all, in my mind, for some reason, I just picture him it's like him stretching before the big game, like getting ready.
That's great, Evan.
Prepping his way.
Yeah, just a warm up, just
a warm up.
Yeah, get us right. It's a warm up miracle. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just right now. I'm picturing what we viewed, like all the images we see of Jesus and like people have drawn up. I'm just taking that and picturing him doing like lunges or something. Doesn't really answer the question, but
yeah. So one of the big themes is this, you should believe in me without seeing the miracle, right? And yet this was kind of the miracle that got them to say, oh, wait a minute, this really is. And so again, that's kind of why it feels like it's almost like see, here you go, as opposed to something that with a deeper meaning, and like raising Lazarus from the dead or something like that was this idea of life after death, this bigger story that was out there. Not necessarily. Maybe the real answer is that means there's wine in heaven, which would be good for us. I'd be happy with that. Especially really good wine. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of saying, okay, this is really the first miracle he's done, and I feel like humans in general, like it's that seeing is believing kind of thing, where even after Jesus, like we're coming up on Easter, and the story of him coming back after being crucified and needing to show the nail holes and everything in his hands so that his disciples would believe. And it is one of those that he's preaching all these things beforehand, and probably maybe the disciples were all like, oh yeah, this is all good, like this is great stuff, but there's probably still that little bit nagging in the back of their mind where it's like, we haven't really seen anything yet. And while, yeah, certainly he says, it's before his time, it's before, really kicks it into gear, so to speak. It's one of those things that, okay, gives them that little taste to be like, okay, yeah, this guy's the real deal. Just because, again, humans by nature, I feel like a lot of people, you need to see it to help you kind of understand or believe in it.
Yeah, I was just reading just before the story, that he runs into Nathaniel, and Nathaniel is coming to kind of join, and he said, "You're the teacher, the Son of God." And he goes, and Jesus says, "Do you believe all this just because I told you, and I had seen you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than this. The truth is, you will all see heaven open and the angels of God going up and down upon the Son of Man." So I mean, he's talking about this like big thing, and then his mom says, "Hey, they ran out of wine." So I kind of feel like the story fit because it was that first step. This is one of the many things that you're going to see, and maybe it was just a warm up, like you said, Evan. So this is one of the most known miracles out there. I mean, everybody jokes about turning water into wine, right? That joke is everywhere, right? And so maybe it was important, and maybe that was the important piece, that would be the known miracle that everyone thinks of.
Yeah, because I'm like playing off of like one of those miracles everybody knows. I remember back in high school with the youth group, when we did the regional kind of weekend getaway, the LYO, over in Independence. Part of what we would do there is each church was supposed to, like, we got a banner that we were supposed to paint and, put whatever to say, yeah, okay, this is our church, this is our group that's here. And I want to say one of the last years I went, we ended up drawing, it was like a pop can at the top where it poured to make it look like it was pop, then pouring into wine or into water and then into wine kind of thing, playing off of both that well-known miracle, but then also off of our abbreviation for our church. So it's definitely, especially as high schoolers, a lot of high schoolers don't necessarily, at least I know I wasn't necessarily thinking about a lot of this kind of stuff in depth. It is one of those easily recognizable kind of ones that, as you say, it's, I think, especially for the servants, seeing, okay, this guy took water, turned it into wine. It was a very tangible thing off the bat that, they're probably going to start spreading word about that after the wedding. Like, hey, did you see that guy that, did that thing? And that starts amassing even more of those followers to come listen to what he's talking about.
I'm glad you didn't say that the youth group was smuggling wine in Dasani bottles or something like that.
I was wondering where this was going to go. So when I was in youth group and we had wine.
My daughter was in that same youth group, and it wouldn't have shocked me at all if that's actually what happened.
Don't say anything. No.
So why is this story read right before Easter? It seems like, during Lent, it seems like it doesn't always necessarily fit. I guess we're still a little ways from Good Friday, but because it's in the early part of his ministry. Mm-hmm. So, is it because of the relationship of him, spilling his blood for us, and was that really why the church decides to have it in this particular? It's where we need Tom, so he could tell us the whole history.
I'm sure there's a reason.
Yeah. Sure.
Or Dick, Dick Hardy would have plenty of that. I'm sure he has the whole history of it.
I guess the only thing I could think of is, I don't know, you have to fit a lot of Jesus's life in a short time, like from Christmas being born to Easter dying in a way. So I don't know, you have to choose some of them. I'm not sure how the church year kind of goes, but you have like his whole kind of life in that short time, and then there's more detail the rest of the year, or I don't know. Just a thought.
I want to know what our instructions are going to be for the week, Evan, because are we supposed to now drink wine and think of Jesus? Is that the plan?
How do we apply this to our lives? Yeah.
See, what I took from this story was you're supposed to call your mom woman. Woman, why do you involve me? Woman, that's not my problem.
Nice. If I would have done that when I was growing up, I'd have been in big trouble, I'll tell you that.
I have to say, I did notice that too, Ben. I thought, whoa, it doesn't seem too respectful. But in our version of it, he just says, how does that concern you and me? So I don't know. Different translations, I guess.
Well, yeah.
Different
Again, like I've said, like there's like this website's got 50 or something different versions.
Is there a translation that says, Mom?
Yeah.
I don't wanna.
Mom.
I'm not ready yet, Mom.
5 more minutes. But with that translation, it of how does this concern you and me, almost makes me think of where you're just guests there. It's really on the people throwing the party that should be worrying about it. But the fact that he still does it, again, I feel like it's one of those. I guess we always talk about Jesus being a servant, or us acting as servants, where it's okay. Yeah, even today, I feel like a lot of people, if you're at a party or something and they ran out of food, it's like, okay, that's I'm just a guest. What am I supposed to do about it? But it's one of those things that maybe if you're just there, you're not necessarily involved in what's going on, you should still be helping. Not like if there's something that you could help with, that should be it's us giving a helping hand to each other, kind of thing.
Yeah, because he did it even though he didn't really want to yet. He did it mostly because his mom asked him, let's be honest. But
and we always do whatever our mothers ask of us.
yeah. And wives in some cases. Well, so what does that mean for us for the week?
Well, I don't see any of us turning water into wine necessarily. I mean, if kind of going off of my last comment, I mean, that could be especially right now, as we were talking offline or before we started recording, of the fact too that we were getting ready to start being able to meet in person a bit more, hopefully within the next couple of months, is whether you're in that specific situation, it's of parties or anything like that, but as we're starting to be around people more, don't hold back that helping hand. If somebody's struggling, because obviously things are going to be different, we're not going necessarily back to the way things were prior to COVID. Is if you have a chance, if there's something you see that, hey, I can help out, even if it's something seemingly small, it should be on us to act as that kind of servant of others, as Jesus showed us throughout his life.
Yeah, even if it seems trivial to us at the moment, it could mean a lot to the person we're helping out.
And grabbing the door, holding the door open for a couple seconds, whatever it could be, that can always have a big impact that you don't necessarily see at the time, or ever necessarily. So yeah, be sure to keep an open eye and open mind as you're going through your life, and as things are continuing to change, and we're hoping to see each other in person. keep that eye open and lend that helping hand, even if it's something seemingly small to you, because you don't know what that impact will be to others. And speaking of hopefully being able to meet in person, this is our last episode prior to Easter. And in the coming months, we've been working towards being able to meet in person. So we are hoping, for those that weren't aware, this podcast was kind of kicked off from this group because we were looking at starting an alternative style worship service at our church, Prince of Peace and Lutheran Church in Westlake, Ohio. That is kind of centered around this kind of thing of being in conversation around coffee, like at a coffee table. So as we start being able to meet in person more, we will be looking to transition back into that in-person service. So we will obviously be spreading more out through these podcasts as we are transitioning to that in-person meeting, and through our social medias with Prince of Peace Lutheran Church. So please keep an eye out, and if you're in the area, we hope that you come join us and wrestle with us as we talk through all these various passages and readings. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to wrestling with you in the future.